Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the 4th box. I hope everyone had a happy Memorial Day. We were just discussing catching up. We had a pretty nice time despite the weather. So hope all of our listeners out there did as well. Tonight could be an interesting episode. I personally, Pops, don't have anything prepared, so I'm really going to be leaning on you for this conversation, but sometimes it goes that way, and I have a feeling by the end of it, we'll both be riled up like we usually are either way. So welcome back, folks.
Yeah, welcome back. I, too, as part of my toast tonight, want to send my best wishes to all those families who lost loved ones, those who gave their life or limbs in service to this country, whether the war or conflict was right or wrong. We had, young Americans go off and be put in harm's way, many of which have lost their lives over the years. And Monday was certainly a chance for all of us to reflect upon that. And I hope everybody did while they were enjoying friends and family and all the activities they might have been involved with. I hope they didn't forget. So I do want to. It's a two-pronged toast tonight, and certainly number one is toasting all those who lost loved ones, and the salute to Memorial Day. And secondarily, I wanted to toast the new Pope, who affirmed a week or so ago, maybe 10 days ago now, that the family is founded on the stable union between a man and a woman. And he also went on to say, and that the unborn and the elderly enjoy dignity as God's creatures. So, I was very happy to hear the Pope come out with sound doctrine and a sound approach to a couple of issues that we here in this country in particular have gotten a little bit sideways on. So I'm cheering a new Pope, at least for that statement. So, and cheers to everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's as always, it's my extreme honor to be with you tonight and with our guests from around the country who join us on a regular occasion. So happy to be back. I do have a quote tonight, comes from Paul Revere, as I have been finding lots of quotes over the last month or so from Paul Revere. And this one says, "The whispers of history teach us to always stay vigilant." So this supports our closing statement at the end of our show. We have to be vigilant. These are just not idle words. The world around us is a dangerous place, and I would suggest it's dangerous primarily from people who would seek to take advantage of us, not necessarily the Muslims and the Ukrainians and the Chinese and all of these other groups that we in this country get whipped into a frenzy by our media and other supporting cast, that we need to be going after these people. I would suggest the biggest threat to us as individuals in this country comes from our own government and the freedoms that they have taken away from us. So yeah. I thought Paul Revere's quote was a good one tonight. But, Bree, I was thinking maybe tonight we could talk a little bit about one of the things we have continued to try to stress over the year and a half or so, almost a year and a half now that we've been doing this, that the trouble that goes on in this country, we believe, is largely a result of the long serving establishment government, who are the ones that benefit from many of the key issues that they have us feuding over. I'm sure some folks, and maybe even, if somebody were to look us up, it would be labeled as some kind of a right wing thing or something like this. But we really are here to promote liberty and individual freedoms that were guaranteed by the blood of our forefathers and the founding documents. And that is government's only real responsibility. If you go back and look at these documents, government's job was to secure for us the right to life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. And other than that, they're supposed to stay out of our way. So part of what I thought we could do tonight was talk about several key, hot button issues that they always, and when I say they, I mean the long serving establishment insiders, followed by the deep state, and beyond that, probably the globalists that want to run the whole program. I think there are several hot button topics that we could talk about that really, they don't benefit Democrats. They don't benefit Republicans. So who are they benefiting, and why then would Democrats and Republicans be feuding over something that in no way was designed or ever intended to benefit either side of the equation?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great conversation to get into.
So one of the topics that I had tonight, and I'm going to kind of go through these randomly, and I put together a list.
Sure.
So one of the topics that I think we could talk about, and I know they have us, pointing fingers, this is true, that's not true, that sort of thing, but chemtrails. I think chemtrails now, for example, is something that most people are recognizing, some of us for many years, it's happening. So, so who does that benefit? All the stuff that they're putting up in the sky, for some reason, many of those reasons we may not fully understand yet. Is it climate control? Is it for the purposes of putting stuff into us that may make us more docile or whatever all these things are? Do either side of the equation, the political equation, the prism that almost everything is measured by, do Republicans benefit, or are Republicans adversely affected? Ask the same question about Republicans and Democrats. Does either one side or the other benefit or suffer a detriment as a result of chemtrails? I would say if there was a benefit, it would have been very open a long, long time ago. Everything would have been disclosed and fully made available for people to understand. So that at that point, since it is not, you have to assume that it's detrimental. So then why would Republicans and or Democrats feud over something that is detrimental to both? We have to look elsewhere to find out who is benefiting and why are we being subjected to something that we have no ability to change.
Yeah, that's a great one to start on, because it's pretty simple to think about when you think about it in those terms. I mean, asking the question, who does it benefit? I guess the first issue with that one is that I still really think, even though it is being talked about in the mainstream, I really think people just aren't bought into that yet. I think a lot of people still hear the term chemtrails and think it's BS. And I guess I really don't know why that is, other than the sources they come from. Maybe the people that don't believe this to be true are only seeing it from sources that they've already deemed to be inaccurate or untrustworthy. That being, let's say, people on the left are only seeing it reported in somewhat right-leaning mainstream sources, or better yet, we talk about people like DeSantis and the guy from PA who have, brought up legislation about these things. There's a ton of different states that are attempting to, if not already, banning these over the airspace of their state.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, that does appear to be more on the Republican side and the conservative side of people that are, in office that are trying to bring these things into action. So I don't know if people on the left have associated this with like a right-wing idea because it's for the most part Republicans that are trying to stop it. But it's, that's a great question to ask those people who are against it, we'll say, because either one, they haven't come to terms with it and don't really believe it to exist, or two, they think it somehow is going to hurt them if we get rid of them because it's a Republican that presented the legislation in the first place.
Yeah. And I think, that's a great point, because I think what happens on so many of these hot button issues, it automatically becomes politicized. And I think there are forces that want it to become politicized. They have coaxed one side to support, and they've coaxed one side to object, because that keeps the feud going between us instead of looking at the perpetrators of this problem. If we are not receiving a benefit for them dumping stuff up into the sky, then it's not good for either party. And instead of the two traditional political parties clashing over this, we should be looking at and looking for who is behind the scenes that is somehow benefiting from something that is obviously detrimental to us, or this would have been fully disclosed decades ago. But since it's been hidden and kept in secret, that it is not good for us. And this stuff that is floating down into the waterways, into the soil that we plant our gardens, into us as persons, it's not selective. It's not all landing on Republicans. It's not all it's landing on all of us. And what we need to be doing is stop fighting amongst ourselves and start looking for who the true culprit is that is taking advantage of keeping us distracted.
Right. Yeah, that's such a great point. That's, again, it feels like a simple one because it feels like there's no argument to it. Some of these conversations we might get into, and there might be someone on the right, someone on the left who says, I have an argument and here's what it is and here's why. And it might just be because they have a different viewpoint than you and I. But with this one, it's like, there's not an argument. Like, there's no argument that says this is bettering anything for anyone. It's certainly not bettering our environmental, or it's not bettering our environment, and it's not bettering our health. The two things that like everyone seems to somewhat usually agree on, maybe the approaches are a little different. For the most part, we want a clean world and we want to be healthy. I mean, that's pretty, like you said, that's across the board.
Right.
So that's like, if we could get everyone to just say, yeah, let's just agree on this and like see what we can do if we just agree and push the issue and like actually go to our representatives and our political officials and demand these changes. If we could make that happen with a small issue that in theory we should all agree on, I think it would be very inspiring because people might be more willing to then have these conversations about the harder issues in seeing that we're actually able to do it when we come together. It's just, we're never able to come together, even on these simple ones.
And I think that's exactly true. And I think there are a lot of forces within traditional media outlets and or otherwise that want us to be distracted. It's really simple to me. If this does not provide a benefit to the greater society, then why is it going on? And why would we be feuding over an issue that none of us benefit from? That's what I was really hoping to inspire tonight was people to think about. We're not here and never have been here promoting right-wing policies. We are here promoting individual liberty. I want to live my life the way I want with no interference, none.
Hmm.
And that should be granted to me. And everybody should have a longing for that. So don't be distracted by these sideshows that are created by somebody that truly is benefiting from it. This one ties in nicely like climate. There's always this debate about climate. Oh, we're overheating. Oh, we're going to be cooling. We've got this, we got that. And they keep us very revved up and they make it a topic that not a day goes by without them talking about it. But there's 1,000 scientists on one side, there's 1,000 scientists on the other, and they can all provide very compelling information. But who benefits? Somebody else benefits. Neither Republicans nor Democrats. I don't care how you slice this issue. If we are wrecking the climate, it's going to affect everybody. If we're not wrecking the climate, but we're blowing hundreds of millions of dollars in carbon taxes and this tax, we're taking from us to the benefit of somebody else. Why are we looking at each other? We didn't cause it and we're not benefiting from it. So we
Yeah.
need not to be fighting amongst ourselves, because the whole chemtrail thing kind of leads nicely into the climate conversation. It's something that has become politicized. It's a political issue. No, it is not. If the climate is being wrecked, we are all going to be affected. If the climate is not being wrecked, but we're all being taxed as if it is, we're all going to be affected. It's not only going to land on Democrats. It's not only going to land on, it's going to land on all of us. Why are we fighting amongst ourselves when somebody much bigger and much more evil is benefiting from this?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what your and mine opinions are of this issue. We know what it is. We know how we feel about it. We've talked about it many, many times, but it doesn't matter because, to your point, the only reason this issue is politicized is because if it isn't, it's not profitable. That's why nobody can agree on these things, because there's people making money on both sides in each camp. So it's much better to have this constant conflict. And it's just, again, like I know every issue that we're going to go through is going to be this way, but it shouldn't have to be debated that this is something that affects everyone. And yet I know that it will and that it could. I know there's people that will be like, well, no, not necessarily. Like, this is more of a left-wing issue and da-da-da-da. And it's like, but it's really not. Like, exactly what you just said cannot be any clearer than that. If it's all real, if the climate is absolutely going to shit and there's 10 years left of, sustainable air and water on this planet, we're all screwed. And if all of that is false and we're just throwing money at nothing, then we're still all screwed. Like,
yeah. Yes.
What is not to understand there?
Yes, exactly. And that is what I was hoping to accomplish tonight, because as you and I know, we have people that listen to us and they offer positive comments. We have people that listen to us and offer negative comments. But I'm thinking about this and I'm wondering, well, so many of the issues that are the conflict, the point of conflict between traditional right-leaning people or traditional left-leaning Democrat, Republican, whatever you want to call it, most of these issues are not a Republican Democrat thing. And that is what we really would like people to understand. And as you were talking about the climate one, which was another one came into mind that I hadn't even included on my list tonight, but it popped into my mind. This is the food we eat. The food we eat in this country. How can this be politicized? If other countries around the world, developed countries around the world and or otherwise, how about the European nations, that many of the stuff that are found in many of our food items today are illegal in these other countries? How can we turn that into a Democrat Republican? How can we turn that into a partisan thing and politicize it? It is affecting all of us. All of us that go down to the store and buy our groceries from traditional places, which most of us have to. We don't have the opportunity from farm to table all the time. Maybe you can go out and treat yourself to that once in a while, or you can raise some vegetables that help you through part. But most of the time, we have to go down to the store and buy our bag of apples and our box of cereal and all these other things. And both of those things have been contaminated by chemicals and or additives to the food that other countries don't even allow in there. How can this sort of thing become a politicized issue? We are all suffering. None of us are benefiting. So we need to focus our gaze someplace else and stop growling at your neighbor who's of the opposite party. That's exactly what they want us to be doing. They are never in the spotlight if they keep us pounding on each other about these things that are affecting all of us. And more importantly, they're affecting our children, and our children are going to come up under the influence of stuff they're dropping out of the sky in chemtrails. Under the influence, their bodies are going to be affected by this stuff that is being placed in our food. Just like Bobby Kennedy mentioned, and I wish to God he would start taking a larger chunk out of some of this stuff. We got to be going for the big, not beating around the bush, and maybe it's all taking time to unravel. I don't know, but it seems to me we should be covering more ground than this. And Bobby Kennedy, as everybody knows, is a lifelong Democrat, but he has concerns. This should not be a partisan issue.
Right. That's exactly where my head went, of course, when you were talking about this. You know, Bobby running for office and having such a big following, I mean, that's really kind of one of the bigger political third-party candidates. I mean, yes, he was a Democrat, but he didn't really run on that premise. He kind of ran as like a third-party candidate. That's one of the better showings they've had in elections, because going back to your very beginning point, you know, everything is really cast into this two-sided thing, even us, even though we always say we're not that. You get boxed in. You're right or you're left, you're red or you're blue, you're Republican or you're Democrat. And that's just, you know, it's an umbrella terms, right? And Bobby was one of the few people in a very, very long time that actually made it pretty far not running in one of those boxes. And he had such a big following. And that's exactly why. Because so many people from so many different ideologies and backgrounds saw the issue with the food as a real issue. And it honestly didn't matter to them what the other issues were. That was their focus and that was their goal. And if we had more people see all these topics the way that the people who latched on to Bobby saw this topic, I think we could accomplish a lot more. I think people are afraid to jump outside of their box and into something like that falls into this kind of like third party, you know, outside of the narrative idea, because it's not mainstream. And that's where I'm going with this is, you know, Bobby had a huge following behind him. He did end up getting into this administration, not the way he originally foresaw, but in a way he's still able to enact change. And yet, despite all of these things, despite all these people who are standing beside him and begging him to do more, there's still a ton of people that just call him a total nut, a total loony bin, right? Like, especially people in the mainstream. And it's like, you're affected the same way everyone else is affected. All of you people who work for whatever mainstream news network who are saying, oh, well, RFK Jr. is a complete, you know, tinfoil hat wearing nut job. You can't listen to anything he's saying. You're eating the same poison food that I am. So it's not so much the people that are on these news networks that are saying these things, because they're just as affected as you and I.
Yes.
They have the same chemtrails going over their houses and the same poison in their food and the same chemicals in their water. So yes, they might be trying to preach this message that the people who are saying otherwise are complete nut jobs who have no idea what they're talking about and it's not based in science and this and that. They might be saying those things, but they are feeling the same effects. So the question is not the people who are the talking heads and why they're saying those things. The question is the people who are making these people say these things. Who are
Right.
those people? Who
Right.
are the people behind the scenes that are forcing those people to say these things? Because, again, the point you're making is that all of us are affected the same way. It really doesn't matter what we believe and what we talk about in our inner circles. And if we're sitting on a podcast with a few followers, or if we're sitting on CNN with however many thousands of people watching, it doesn't matter. We're all being affected the same way. So who's behind all of this stuff that is spreading these weird myths about how it's all fine and anyone talking about it is crazy?
Exactly. And that's the point I'm really trying to illuminate tonight, is we are focused on the wrong things when we're talking about addressing the problems of the day. Is chemtrails a problem? Yes. Is it Democrat or Republican? No, it's everybody. Is the stuff in our food a problem? Absolutely. It affects everybody. The climate absolutely affects everybody. And while you were talking about Bobby Kennedy, here's the ones that really hit me the hardest in my effort to understand how people think. People were supporting Bobby Kennedy. Rah, rah, rah. A lot of people like Bobby Kennedy, both sides of the traditional aisle. Then all of a sudden, he ends up by one way or another in a Trump administration, and now a whole bunch of people can't stand him. Who yesterday they liked Bobby Kennedy or they liked Tulsi Gabbard because they were somebody who was talking about an issue that they were concerned with. But now all of a sudden that they're in the Trump administration, now all of a sudden, well, we can't like that guy anymore. That is so shallow. That is exactly why they get away with boxing us in and taking away our freedoms and poisoning us and doing all these other things, because we are so committed to the brand that we don't understand the issue. And what we're really trying to do here is get people to look at the issue. Don't worry about the brand. And another perfect example, this kind of leads into the next two that are very much related, which would be drugs in this country. Okay, there are drugs in this country that are killing people to the tune of near 100,000 or more a year. Okay, I believe that people should have an opportunity to live their life as they see fit. But if there was something that was killing people to the tune of 100,000 people a year, Vietnam, we lost almost 59,000 young people in Vietnam over 10 years. We lose almost double that. And remember the Vietnam years, of course you don't, but I do. There were protests all over this country about Vietnam and we shouldn't be in this war. And people were dying for no reason. And it was a banker's war like Olimar and all these other things. We're losing almost twice as many people in 1 year as we lost in a decade that we were in Vietnam. And nobody's doing anything. It isn't that the fentanyl stops at a Republican door and don't go into the Democrat. It's affecting all of us. All of us are losing loved ones, friends, and so on that have been affected by this epidemic of these extremely potent drugs that have poured into this country. Largely has to do with the border, which is another subject we're going to roll into. But how can we somehow allow ourselves to make this a partisan issue when it's people dying from something that if this country committed itself to dealing with, we would deal with it? That's the question that needs to be asked. Why, after years and years and years of hundreds of thousands of deaths in this country, why is it continuing? Somebody, somewhere along the line, has found a way to benefit from this, and it has nothing to do with whether you're Republican or Democrat. That is the way we got to start looking at this stuff.
Right. Yeah, for sure. We can probably roll right into the border with that one because, like you said, they really, I mean, they're kind of they're not, but they are a little bit one and the same. That has a lot to do with why there is so much of the drug issue.
And that's where I wanted to go next, is the border. So they've been successful in making it a partisan, politicized issue. However, we send our young men and women all around the world to protect other countries' borders. Our elected officials, our public servants are guarded with people with guns, standing behind cement barricades, barbed wire fences, and all the rest of it. But somehow, we have allowed those very people hiding behind concrete barriers and barbed wire fences tell us that we're not allowed to have a fence up to protect this country from thugs and drugs that have poured into it. Somehow we have allowed ourselves to become convinced that, well, I'm a Democrat, I got to stand for open borders, or no, it's beyond that. It is common sense. We have got to take a look at, how about this? Banks are guarded with people with guns. Everybody in public office is guarded by people with guns. But we can't put somebody with a gun at the schoolhouse. What in the hell are we tolerating this stuff for? These people work for us. This is not a Democrat-Republican thing. That's my child in that schoolhouse. And if my public servant in the courthouse or down in my state capitol or down in D.C. can be guarded with somebody with guns, then my kids can sure as hell be guarded by somebody with a gun. And for somebody to tell me otherwise, it is not a partisan thing. Who benefits from this side of this kind of thing? It's not a Democrat thing. It's not a Republican thing. It's we, the people, who have been subjected to this kind of malarkey from our public officials who have crammed this shit down our throat, telling us that we need to run off and send our kids to school and nobody can be there to protect them. Meanwhile, I'm hiding behind a border wall with somebody with a gun. But we're not allowed to secure our border. And the states that are down there, the states that are affected with a direct boundary up against Mexico should absolutely, beyond a doubt, put their own measures in place to stop that. If the federal government isn't going to, who has that responsibility, by the way, not a Democrat responsibility, not a Republican responsibility. It is their responsibility, and they weren't doing it. Yep. This should not be a partisan issue.
Yeah, this is a tough one because, like, for me, the drugs make sense. You say, oh, this is all common sense, and I agree with you, right? But that's not the conversation we're having. We're not having this conversation thinking about only the people that agree with us. We're having the conversation fully about people who are in disagreement with one another. And the drugs, it's like, yeah, I mean, how can you argue for that? How can you on any side of the aisle be like, no, it's good. We should definitely get more fentanyl. Like, that doesn't make any sense, regardless of your political leanings. But the border, there are so many people that are so against closing the border to illegals. And they don't care who these people are. They don't care if they really are refugees or if they're the head of all the cartel, like any cartel. Pick a cartel, whatever. They don't care. They're like, yeah, this is the right thing to do. This is a melting pot of a country. First of all, that's never what that meant. But we don't need to digress. I just know that there are so many people who are fully in favor of just leaving the border, I mean, near all the way open. And to me, that defies logic and common sense in every way. But I think this is going to be the one where it's like, okay, how do we make people see this is not a partisan issue? Because this is something that's been talked about so much. And, like, obviously, this was one of the key issues this last election. Like, this was, according to the polls, whatever, if you want to believe those or not, was kind of one of the main reasons so many people voted for Trump. Like, sure, the mainstream and the left in general and whatever can kind of say, like, Trump is a racist, Trump is a Nazi, Trump is mean, he's a bully, blah, blah, blah. But the overarching theme of the country was pro-Trump, and a lot of it was because they were pro-closing the border. So, yeah, I mean, I think the people that are opposed to this are definitely in the minority, but there are still some that aren't going to see this as a nonpartisan issue. There are still some that are just maybe never going to wake up, and I don't know if this one really can fall into that category of things we can just agree to work together on, because I think the people that don't see eye to eye with us here are never going to see that it doesn't benefit them or
Hmm.
any of us.
Hmm.
I don't know what they see. I can't make sense of it. Like I said, I just don't know if this one is ever going to be able to cross that threshold because they're so like gung ho that having an open border and letting people in and giving them whatever they want is just the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that's great because I think it causes us to be more thoughtful about it and to be more cognizant of what the other side's argument might be. So first of all, my immediate reaction to that would be, well, there is an issue that the media has largely been successful in conditioning a large portion of society to believe that people that stream unvetted into this country and ultimately end up receiving benefits paid for by the American taxpayer is a good thing. So, to start back at one of the early remarks you made, yes, we should have a means for people from around the world seeking a better life to get in, and we did. Only in the last 20 years has this become a partisan thing. So, truthfully, it's something that has happened in that last period of time, 20 years or so, where all of a sudden now it becomes, well, I'm on this side, I want the border open, and I'm on that side, I want it closed. Where before it was something that we as a country mutually agreed upon, hence we had borders and they were maintained and secure. When we started handing out things for people that came into this country and providing a benefit to them, obviously you're going to have more of that happen. Just like one of the old saying goes, if you want something less of something, you tax it. If you want more of something, you subsidize it. So how can people pouring into this country subsidized by the American taxpayer positively affect either Republicans or Democrats? It doesn't. It either affects everybody positively or it affects everybody negatively, but it doesn't selectively affect the Republicans positively and the Democrats negatively or vice versa. We're all affected by this phenomenon. So, what has happened in the last 25, 30 years where this has become a big thing? Somebody decided we're going to cheer for it, and somebody said we're going to stand opposed when before that time we uniformly stood opposed to it, and we had a uniform code of naturalization or mechanism for people to come into this country. So, the second point I would say is on the folks that are suggesting that this is a wonderful thing and we need to be allowing these people to come in and just assimilate into society, my first question is how many of them have you brought into your home and given a place to stay until they figured out the system and got on their own feet? It's easy to say. It's easy to say, but how many people that proclaim that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that thinks the border should be open and whoever the hell wants to come in should just be allowed to rush in? How many people have you raised your hand and say, I'll take a couple of them up here and I'll make sure they get their feet on the ground and get off to a good start? If you haven't done that, it's all bullshit. You're just saying it because your political side of the equation may have suggested that this is what we need to be cheering for. Ultimately, in the end, if these people are coming into the country and providing an additional burden under the social safety network that we have for our veterans, for our seniors, for our disabled, and any of those people who have been in this country, many of which, veterans in particular, many disabled for one job incident or another or otherwise, many of those people have paid their dues. And now they are receiving less of a benefit because somebody came in with nothing and took it out of their hands. This is not a Republican or a Democrat thing. And I know the spotlight is trying to keep us polarized. They want to keep us focused on arguing with the other side. But these conditions, and go back to your earlier point about the drugs, they don't benefit anybody. When there's 100,000 people in this country dying a year from drugs, and we haven't taken a serious approach to controlling it or fixing it, who is benefiting? Why is this being allowed to happen? And it shouldn't be anything that we, the Republicans and Democrats, it is we, the people, are having this stuff allowed to come in here, affecting all of us. And some of us have loved ones, friends, family, or otherwise that have perished or become, basically unable to function in society because of some of these things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way of framing it, is thinking about the other people in this society, in this country, who the people who are pro open border also claim to care about.
Mm-hmm.
You made the point about all of these different benefits we have built into this country that are for our elderly, that are for veterans, that are for, maybe families with disabled children, etc. We do have these things built into the system right now, baked into the cake. Whether that's good or bad, how some of these organizations and how some of these benefits have come to be, the point is, all of those things, the money that should be in those pots is being minimized and reduced because the money is going to people that aren't even from this country. So,
precisely,
again, not even thinking about how some of these social programs are tied to the Constitution, just simply thinking about it in a way of like how it affects everyone across the board. This is something we should be able to be thinking about. I feel like I see so many people that are up in arms because of the people that Trump chose in his administration, because they're worried about some of these social programs going away. And it's like, but those programs are already losing money because of the immigrant and the border issue that you also claim to stand in favor of. So I think if people could maybe see it in that way, that like, I don't know, you have to choose, right? Like, you kind of do. Well, you have to choose like the elderly person with a disability or this guy who came in from God knows where and he's selling fentanyl down the street.
Like, exactly. That is precisely it. That is precisely the way to frame this discussion. Think about this. We just celebrated Memorial Day back a few days ago. Memorial Day, the time we honor those who gave all. As long as there is one veteran living on the streets without being cared for, if there is one, then we should not be sending billions of dollars all over this world. If there is one veteran, and this don't matter if it's Republican, Democrat, black, white, red, yellow, religious, secular, all these things that they keep us feuding about. If there is one veteran that is living in the squalor conditions out on the streets without a warm place to lay his head, without warm meals, without medical attention, and we are sending millions and billions of dollars all around this world, and we're allowing people to come in and take the benefits that person earned, all of us should be outraged. All of us should be demanding a cessation to those things that are keeping the people from receiving the benefits that they were entitled to, that they put their life on the line to provide. Yep. And instead, it's being pilfered off for some political reason, and they're keeping us banging our heads together, feuding amongst ourselves as if somehow that is a Democrat or Republican thing. It is not. Veterans dying out on the street is not a Republican Democrat thing. It is a reason because those skunks that are in office, and that's Republicans and Democrats, have filtered the benefits away from our heroes and put them in the hands of somebody else. This is intolerable. Talk about the intolerable acts from back in the revolutionary time. These are intolerable acts. As long as they are taking from the people that provided us this place to live and secured it for us with life and limb, they should never, ever be forgotten or be living in want. And they are. So, right. So the border, because there are people streaming in here that are taking resources away from the people that should be receiving them, such as the veterans and others, This is intolerable, and we, both Republicans and Democrats, need to be standing up and throwing these skunk criminals out that have turned it around the other way.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to really, perceive how big of a problem this is and how it is truly such a nonpartisan issue. You have to think about it in the way that it affects those other things. And it's not to say that if all of the illegal immigrants that streamed in over the last 4 years didn't, that somehow we would be doing better for our veterans and for our people who are, just not as well equipped to care for themselves. It's not to say that would happen, because knowing our government, it wouldn't. But think about the billions and billions of dollars. I mean, the number is almost not even able to be measured. Like, some cities, like the state of New York alone, and I'm sure most of it comes from New York City, spent like upwards of $12 billion in the span of 3 years on housing alone for illegal immigrants. Like,
Yep.
This is not even including the prepaid debit cards and the cell phones and all these other things. Like, we're talking tens and tens of billions of dollars spent that could have been allocated to other things, other people that are American citizens, that, to your point, thinking about Memorial Day, thinking about our veterans, like, have literally sacrificed so much for this country.
Yep.
They're receiving nothing. Think about the VA. The VA is like the biggest shit show ever, and same goes. Tens and tens of billions of dollars spent in the last couple years alone on healthcare for illegal immigrants.
Yep.
Like 27 some billion dollars in like only 2024, somewhere in that range for healthcare alone. And I'm sure this isn't even all of it, right? Like, these are just very broad statistics because it's pretty hard to track this stuff down. But like $27 billion, that could go a long way for the VA and all the people that go there and have a terrible time getting taken care of. Like, it's just, the system is so broken, and it's a great way to bring it all together, because I asked the question, how do we make people who don't agree with this see it for what it is? And I think that's the best way to do it. Like, think about the resources being allocated.
That's correct.
Those could so much better serve the American people, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. All of us, the American people. It's not Republican versus Democrat in this case. It's American citizens versus people who are not citizens here.
That's correct. And it's the people that are stealing away from we the people. They're stealing away from both Republicans and Democrats, and they're providing resources other places that could have been spent here. And by the way, there's no constitutional authority for billions and billions of dollars to be going all over this world, mostly to places that hate our guts, or to be allowing people to stream into this country and we're going to take from you and give to thee. This is the other perfect example of this, and I thought of it while you were talking. That was a very good description of the overall picture of things. How about this? Undeniably, our roads are in terrible shape. Our bridges are in terrible shape. Our water systems are in terrible shape. All of this infrastructure. Yet we send billions and billions of dollars all over the world, 130 or 140 countries. We send billions and billions of dollars to, while this place is falling apart. That doesn't benefit Republicans, and it doesn't benefit Democrats. It is detrimental to all of us, and we are all suffering as a result of it. And the skunks, once again, both on the Republican and the Democrat side, have allowed this stuff to go on while this country has fallen apart. Democrats and Republicans are all suffering from this, just like the education system. There's a couple points I'm going to rapid fire them here. There's a couple other points I want to make. How about the education system? I know they're going to make this one partisan too, but it's not. If you look at where we rank amongst the world, and we spend more than everybody, but we're ranking further and further and further down the list. This is affecting Democrats. It's affecting Republicans. We, the people, both Republicans and Democrats, need to be irate about what has happened to our country at the hands of the criminals, long-time serving criminals. Guess what? If we turn these people out every 2 years, this shit would not be going on. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to let them be in down there for 30 or 40 years as they're allocating money to flow into Ukraine and into Afghanistan, and half of it flows back into their pockets. And this country is falling into disrepair. And we are allowing them, through the use of big media and government propaganda, to convince us that somehow one side or the other is wrong in this equation. We, the people, are suffering from what they have done, stealing the wealth of future generations and sending it all over the world, allowing our veterans to lay on the streets, allowing the infrastructure to fall apart. And we're too busy down here fighting about it like it's a Democrat-Republican thing. It is not.
Yeah, and I know we've got more points to get into here, but I just want to stop and reiterate something that we've brought up in episodes before. You know, you touched on the education system, and I think that's one that a lot of younger people can get on board with because they're watching their kids come up in an education system that has fallen apart more and more over time. I mean, in the time that I was in elementary school till now, it's already declined so much and so rapidly, but we look back even further and further, it's like disgusting how much we've really dropped off as far as the education provided to our children in this country. And when it comes to getting engaged with this stuff, it can be so overwhelming. And we say it all the time, like, pick one issue. The education thing is a great place to start because so many people are watching their kids in public school, sometimes even private schools, but obviously that's not really part of this conversation. The point is, if you have children in the education system currently, you should care about what is happening there and where they're spending the majority of their time. And if that's the one issue you get involved with, it's enough. Mm-hmm. Nobody can be expected to know every single detail of what is going on. And frankly, we shouldn't. Nobody should be like 100% engaged with every single bad thing all the time. It's just not good for you. But pick one. And if it's the education thing, if it's the border thing, and you go out and you have this conversation with the person from the opposing side and you find the common ground, it's amazing what's possible, even if it's only in your county, the changes that could come from it. But I just wanted to touch on that while you were on education, because I do feel like this is one where we do see so many people getting involved, similar to the food, going back to the conversation with Bobby Kennedy earlier in the episode. I feel like food and education right now are places that people can't really avoid. You know, you talk about border stuff, you talk about war stuff. It's kind of easy to just turn off your television because it's not happening right down the road. So it's easy to tune it out and not care and not really know what's happening, you know, and leave it at that. But when it's the food you're bringing home and feeding your family for dinner, and it's the school that you're sending your kid to in the morning, you can't escape it. You can't avoid it. And it is affecting you and your family all the time, every day, whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, whether you're whatever you call yourself, everyone is affected the same way. So these are things that should force you to get involved on some level, even if it's small.
Precisely. And it is such a good one. And I didn't mean to glaze over it, because education is an issue that affects everybody, Democrat, Republican alike. And we don't have to look very far. We can kid ourselves and pat ourselves on the arse saying how wonderful of a job we're doing. But people all around this country, inner cities, out in the rural areas, recognize their kids are graduating from high school. They don't know their multiplication tables. They can't spell. They can't write. They don't know anything about history. These are things that were done on purpose. Do you think the Democrats benefit from that? Do you think Republicans benefit from that? No. We, the people, collectively suffer from the dumbing down and the corruption of the education system that has, by design, folks. Let's cut all the partisan blather aside. This has not happened by a mistake. It's like drugs pouring into this country. If we in this country committed ourselves to taking care of our veterans, to taking care of our education system, and making it something where every child graduated with a basic understanding of how to manage a checkbook, or how to take care of a home budget, and how to do basic math, and how to read, we would have it. The reason we don't have it, they keep us distracted as if somehow it's a Democrat or a Republican thing that our kids graduate from high school but can't write their name. This is not made up stuff. It affects all of us, and who is in charge of taking care of it? Once again, it's we the people against them. This is what we have to get beyond. This stuff is, we are benefiting nobody except the powers that be. The more we make these things partisan and politicize them and keep fighting amongst ourselves about something that they are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you did highlight the war, which was kind of the grand finale for me. Having wore the uniform, having, the very extreme honor to have served with World War II guys on the local burial detail, and listen to these stories and the things that they went through, amongst other wars, the Korean War and Vietnam War, and the stuff that went on over in the sandbox in Iraq and Afghanistan, and having had the opportunity and the extreme honor to have served with these people. Guess what? Democrats nor Republicans benefit from a war that did not have to be fought. When our young people are sent off to a place, they were no threat to us here. They weren't. But our young people go over. We collectively, them bullets don't stop because you're a Democrat, or they don't stop because you're a Republican. You're from we the people. It is we the people who end up watching our kids spill their blood on some distant land, and somebody's benefiting from this man-made creation called war, and the bankers are benefiting, and the military-industrial complex is benefiting, and we're back here fighting amongst ourselves instead of looking at the true problem and recognizing this is we the people. This is our country. We here in this country, we the people rule, and we got to stop fighting amongst ourselves and take back our offices from the criminals that have been sitting in them for as long as we've been alive. And we've been over here fighting over useless nonsense while they rip us off, rip off our kids' future and their kids' future. We're paying debts, and our kids are paying debts, and our grandkids are paying debts on benefits that you never received. That is wrong. And that was caused by both Republicans and Democrats in high office. And we, the Republicans, Democrats, independents, constitutionalists, whatever you may be, libertarian, we got to get our head out of our ass, quit fighting amongst ourselves, and recognize where the true evil lies and who the true enemy is.
For sure. All of this whole conversation kind of made me think about COVID again in a way, because we talk about all the different reasons for COVID, right? Like why it happened. And we talk, you always throw out the kind of test balloon thing. And I haven't really thought about it as being like the perpetuator for this divide. But maybe that was a big part of its purpose that it was meant to serve too. Because it's very obvious to everyone that all of these things have become way more polarized. You can't really be in the middle anymore. You can't be a constitutionalist or a libertarian or a Green Party or whatever. You have to be right or left leaning. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of COVID. I think COVID kind of forced people into those boxes because you were either like all in or you were all out, and you kind of went one way or the other, right or left. And that's sort of how that was determined. And now I feel like people got stuck in these boxes, and with all of these topics that we went through tonight, have now felt forced to latch on to the idea that that box tells them to believe in. Well, you're over here and this is how we feel about X, Y, and Z. So you're in the club. This is how you feel about it too. And same on the other side. And not to bring everything back to COVID, because it kind of feels like somehow that happens sometimes. But that time frame was really where we started to see the divide, where it was like yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, oh, I'm mostly Democrat, but I have some Republican ideas, or I'm Republican, fiscally and Democrat socially. You used to hear that a lot, and now it's kind of like you can't
Yep.
be both. You can't be in the middle. You can't be gray. You can't be purple. You have to be red or blue. And that time frame was really when we saw that divide and that polarization, and it doesn't really matter why it happened, but we know that the division is orchestrated, whatever the causes of that were or were not. We know that this division is on purpose because these are all issues that we really should be able to come together on, and over time we've gotten further and further apart.
Hmm.
Like, these are not new issues,
No.
and yet we're not getting better at coming together on them. There's always something that pops up that tears us in one direction or the next, and we're not able to just realign. Like, we can't spin back quickly and go, oh, whoa, 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 wait, yes, they distracted us for a minute. There was this flashy light over here and they distracted everybody for a second, but like, let's regroup and really focus again on what the problem is. It's like, as soon as that starts to happen, another emergency, another catastrophe, and everybody's back to forgetting that we were kind of starting to get on the same page here. So some of these issues that we talked about tonight, I do think are simple. I think they should be easy for people to like start reconnecting on and remembering that like we're on the same side here. But
Hmm.
it's hard because we have so much fighting against us.
Well, how we doing? You made up some really good points there. You brought up some really good points. We did talk about this early on during the COVID, and that this is certainly going to be used as a wedge to bring us further apart. And I think all these other issues that we talked about here, they all feed on one another, and it's keeping that big chasm of division between us. And again, that keeps us from focusing on the true problem. But there, as you mentioned also, and I think COVID did enhance the polarization of this country. It did split us further apart. You were either a true believer, which most were, or you were not. And there was no meeting in the middle. Families were being split apart. This is Civil War type stuff that went on, back in the 1860s, where families were being split apart on these issues. And that's what was happening here. Families, close friends, businesses were being torn apart by this, and that was a creation of those very people who we need to be focusing our gaze on. Big pharma, big media, big government, military industrial complex. These are the outfits that benefit from us squabbling over these issues that we should all collectively say we're all being negatively affected here. We should not be ripping ourselves apart because we're all being negatively affected by poison in our food and by our veterans sleeping out on the street with no clothes or no warm place to stay. And because those benefits are being provided to somebody else, or billions and billions of dollars are being sent all over the world while our infrastructure is falling apart and our veterans are on the street. These should be issues we can coalesce around. Veterans are made up of every walk of life, every political party, every denomination, every nationality. They are all people who have gone off and wore the colors of this uniform to try and provide for us what our forefathers did. And we're allowing people in our very own offices to steal it away from us because we're too busy fighting amongst ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So many good points brought up tonight. I mean, the big overarching theme here is that the division is all manipulated around all of these subjects because it truly would be so easy for us to make real change with any of these things if we wanted to, if we could come together on it. So I'm glad you brought this up because I think it's something we should continue to talk about. Again, not a new idea, not a new concept. People have been saying this forever. If we could just stop pointing the finger at each other and point the finger at them together, I mean, it would all collapse. But
Mm-hmm. Yep.
here we are. So I don't think it's a bad thing to touch on these points again, especially some of the topics that you brought up. I think they're things that are just across the board, like ideas we can all agree on. How we stop ourselves from the distraction, how we unite on these things. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe you have a big one you're going to present to us as a solution tonight. But it's certainly a big problem that we haven't been able to crack for a long, long time.
Well, one of the things I've learned in business and in family and all the rest of it over the years is there is no fixing the problem without communication. And as long as they are successful in keeping us so divided that we can't sit down and have civil conversation with people that look at the world differently than ourselves, we cannot fix these problems. As long as they are successful, and when I say they, I mean big media, big pharma, big government, big industrial company, if they could keep us so distracted and so unwilling to sit down and listen to other voices that as soon as they pop up these things, we come up and we're ready to go to blows over. The way to get through problems is communication. We have to be able to talk to each other and recognize that, as you've said many times on this show, we have a lot more in common than we do in difference. And we need to find those things, celebrate those things, and recognize who the true problem is, where that problem originates from, and taking it back and fixing it is completely in our control. We do not want to come down to the fourth box. Nobody wins. This can be done peacefully, but we do have to communicate with people that have other viewpoints on how the world is revolving around us. We have to come together and recognize these big ticket items are something that we all either benefit from or we all suffer from. And I tried to highlight some points tonight that we all suffer from, and we all should be able to come together on those things pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. I guess, the one thing you can do is talk to real people face to face when you know that they don't agree with you. Have the conversation, because just going back to how much this division is orchestrated, look at social media. The algorithms are set up in a way where you won't even really see the people that disagree with you. You only see people who agree with you all the time, and both sides are like that, which means you're never having the conversation. You never get to have the conversation. The only time you see the conversation is when they're very, very angry, very irate, very crazy, very irrational, things like that. But for the most part, you don't just see the regular people like you and me who are on the other side and who want to have the conversation, because the entire internet is working against that happening. So sit down at a bar and get off your phone and talk to the person across the room. And if he has a different idea, great. Mm-hmm. Have the conversation. You'll probably end up with a friend at the end of it, even if you don't agree, and all the better for it.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point of this.
Absolutely. And one other thing that I think does factor in on this, as long as we as a society continue to send the same people back down to Washington, D.C., or back down to your state offices and expect there to be a different result, we are being duped. We are being duped into supporting the incumbent. We should be throwing them all out, all of them. Every couple of years when their term comes up, nobody on a Republican, nobody on a Democrat side should be sitting in them offices for 25, 30, 35 years. And us sitting back saying, geez, I wonder why nothing changes. It is up to us, and we have to collectively, hey, put some new Democrats in. Hey, put some new Republicans in. It cannot be any worse. It can't be any worse. Put some new ones in.
That's so true. That's such a great, whoever you voted for last time, just vote for the different person next time. If everybody did that all the time, the problem would literally go away. That's the easiest solution we can offer.
100%, and it's 100% within our ability to do.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Well, that's what I had. I think we got through most of them, and I think there was some really good discussion on some of these things, and you were really able to illuminate. Some of them are so broad in scope that everybody is negatively affected, and those are the things that we need to be coming together on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was a great idea for a conversation tonight. I didn't really feel prepared going into it, but I think that's this is the perfect conversation to have when I'm unprepared, because it goes to show that, like, everyone knows these topics. Everyone knows what's going on with them. Everyone knows we're all equally negatively affected. Let's just agree to start having the conversation about it. Like, that's it. We're not asking a lot. It's a very simple thing we're offering with this episode. Start having the conversation about these things with people you disagree with. Just see where it takes you.
Amen. Amen. It's all it has to start with communication.
Yep, for sure. Well, thanks for the idea tonight, Dad. I think we're ready to wrap it up. I'm all set on my end if you are.
I am, and I do have a Bible verse for the night. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And I hope that tied in with tonight. That comes from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11. So until next time,
stay vigilant. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.